Hey, it's the veteran coach. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the PACT Act and what that might mean for you. Now, the PACT Act passed in August of 2022. I haven't covered a whole lot about it yet, but I've had a ton of questions. And environmental exposures are a hot topic in the VA and in the military, veteran world. We're no strangers to it. There's been Agent Orange with Vietnam veterans. There's been water contamination at Camp Lejeune. There's been other instances, but the VA is finally acknowledging some of the conditions that are related to environmental exposures in our newer theaters, and more specifically with the burn pits. Now, I have done a video specifically on the burn pits, and if you haven't already checked that out, please, I'll link it up here. Check that out. Even if you are not having any of these issues that are now on the presumptives list, which we'll get to shortly, you still should get ahead of this. If you have been deployed to any of these regions we're about to discuss, or think you may have been exposed to any of these environmental things, make sure you contact an environmental coordinator. There's more details about that in that video here. But we'll go ahead and jump into what these medical conditions are that are presumed to be related to environmental exposures. It's a new updated list. And what a presumptive is, if you haven't heard what that is a medical condition that is presumed to have been caused or aggravated by your service, and in this case, environmental exposure. So stay tuned. We'll dive into some more of those details. And if you have questions as we're going through, make sure you leave comments below in this section or visit our website at theveteran.coach and fill out that contact form for private questions for us. The PACT Act was expanded in 2022 to cover more of the burn pit exposures in the newer campaigns, Iraq, Afghanistan, but it also includes Agent Orange, other toxic exposures such as Camp Lejeune water, things like that. So it's just a little bit more all-encompassing, and the big new addition is the burn pit exposures. The PACT Act adds to the list of health conditions that are assumed or presumed to be caused by exposure to these substances. These conditions are referred to as presumptives or presumptive conditions. If you think you were exposed recently and you don't know what some of the new modifications of the PACT Act cover, I'm here to show you all of the new additions and what it could mean for you. It expands and extends the eligibility for healthcare coverage, especially for these new burn pit exposures, but also Vietnam and Gulf War era veterans. There's 20 new presumptive conditions, some for radiation, some for Agent Orange, but mostly covering the burn pits again, which I put out a video recently about the burn pit registry. If you have not gotten on that, make sure you see that video. I'll link that above. Hopefully this is going to help us improve our research, our treatment related to toxic exposures. The more people that come forward and have these exams, the more we know about the conditions related to these exposures, and the more we can help other veterans. So this is important. Even if you're not having current symptoms, it's best to go ahead and get on that registry, get checked out, and have that screening. Now, if you're not sure what a burn pit is, what all that entails, it's anything that was open air combustion. There's a lot of trash that was burned overseas in these new campaigns and theaters. It was a lot cheaper to burn and destroy waste, bio waste, trucks, weapons, everything. It was just much cheaper to destroy it than bring it back. Just the water bottles alone. Think about how hot it is over there. Each person drinking 8 bottles of water a day, that adds up. And it had to be burned. So breathing those BPA, the plastic even, let alone the metals and the biohazard waste. There's a lot of things that are now presumed to be connected if you were exposed to that air. How do you know if you have a presumptive exposure to the burn pits? This is where that registry does come in. If you get the exam, see what issues you may have already pre-existing going on right now that you may not know may be related to the burn pits, or maybe you know you have some things going on and now you can finally prove that it is related to your service. Now, one of the qualifying factors for a presumptive issue on the PACT Act is proving that you were in those locations on or after September 11th. Any of these below locations qualify, Afghanistan and Syria being the two big here. On or after 1990, any of these locations. This is a little bit more inclusive. This has Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE, any of the airspaces above these locations. What burn pit and other toxic exposure conditions are now presumptive? This is probably the slide you guys are all waiting for. What can you claim, and what 20 new conditions have been added? Again, most of these are going to be for the Gulf War and post 9/11 veterans. All of the below cancers are now presumptive. Unfortunately, there's a lot of links between cancer and these toxic exposures. So any and all of these cancers below would be covered on the presumptive list. So what you need to do to claim these, if you have any of these presumptive issues, is A, proving the location that you were exposed, and B, proving that you have the listed condition. Those are the two qualifying factors for presumptive claims. Other than cancer, these are a few other illnesses and diseases that are now qualifying presumptive issues. I do want to point out a key word on this list is chronic. For bronchitis, rhinitis, sinusitis, a lot of us have those issues throughout the year, but it's important to note the word chronic. Verbiage and terminology is very important with the VA. So if you have rhinitis, sinusitis, bronchitis, you have to prove that it is chronic. So documentation comes in very handy. If you haven't seen my video about secure messaging with the VA, I highly recommend that one. But having documentation, a little bit of a paper trail, so to speak, even for issues that we treat over the counter with things like nasal spray and Zyrtec and just over the counter cold medications, it's important to document that, or there will be no proof of chronic, because that is key in some of these issues here. How do I file a claim for a presumptive condition? This is a separate process from the burn pit registry itself. The burn pit registry is just an exam. It's checking you, making sure you don't have the conditions on that list, or if you do, they're annotating it, but they do not automatically file claims for you. You still have to file a claim. So once you go to the VA, you're on the burn pit registry, you've done the health questionnaire, you've done the evaluation, that covers you for documentation starting off. However, you want to make sure, again, you have the documentation for chronic, you have your diagnosis, things like that. But getting on the burn pit registry is a very important part. If you don't have that, it's going to be a little bit of a hold up in your claim process, or could be. The health questionnaire part of the registry is very brief. It's online. It's just a questionnaire, brief health history, and a few other questions. The health evaluation is, again, voluntary, but very important for CYA purposes, or Cover Your A purposes. So make sure you get this part done. If you are going to file for compensation, it's important to have this part out of the way so it doesn't hold up your claims and your C&P exams. To get this whole process started for your registry, for the evaluation and the questionnaire, you'll want to reach out to your environmental coordinator. This is based on region. You can click the link below to get started on that process. Once you've done all of that, you'll want to start your claim online. If this is a new claim, something you've never filed before, you can file it online with the EZ form. If it's something that's previously been denied and now the VA is considering it a presumptive claim, you can file a supplemental claim. Again, they will not automatically award you something just because you have claimed it before and it's now presumptive. You have to do that legwork. So make sure you file that supplemental claim. It is an appeal, and submit something like a personal statement saying, hey, this is now listed as a PACT Act presumptive. I would like to be reevaluated. It could be as simple as that, but for a supplemental claim, you do have to have new evidence. PACT Act update would be new evidence. So know the facts. Presumptive claims are not automatically awarded. You still have to apply and file a claim for compensation. You have to prove both that you were exposed during the service and that you are having current issues. Again, if it's not on paper, it cannot be claimed. It cannot be proved that it is a current issue that you have. If you don't have both pieces of the puzzle, you can still be denied for a presumptive claim, so make sure you have all of your ducks in a row before you submit. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have questions, comments, concerns, be sure to drop those in the comments below. And if you learned anything and this video was helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really does support me in my endeavors to serve you and answer all of your questions. So please continue to support the channel, comment, like the videos. But until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.